Hey, what's up, everybody? This is D back again with MKD58 Media. Got another movie review for you guys, and this movie review, kind of reluctantly, to be honest with you, kind of reluctantly bringing this to you. But this movie review is for the 2011 film Contagion. All right, so Contagion. This movie, I actually watched this kind of before the movies that I just did my last couple of rounds of reviews for, Tremors and Lawnmower Man and The Hunt and all that type of stuff. I actually watched this before I watched a lot of those movies. Obviously, Tremors I've seen like 35 times over my entire life, but I mean, like, just in terms of recent watches, I actually watched Contagion before all of those, but I sat on that for a little bit because I was like, dude, I don't really necessarily feel like talking about this, because you might as well just be talking about current events when you talk about this movie. My girl actually watched this movie a couple months ago, maybe about a month ago or a couple months ago. I went to bed or something. I don't know. Sometimes she'll watch movies on her own, late at night or whatever, and then it'll be one of those situations where I got to figure out whether I'm going to watch it, by myself to kind of catch up with her opinions on it or not. But she told me it was good. And so the moment came up recently again where she kind of low key suggested maybe I should watch it, maybe we should watch it. And then she just straight up said we should watch it, and so I'm like, okay, she's saying this is good, so let's go ahead and give this a chance, since I didn't really have a lot of ideas at the moment or whatever. So we watched it, and look, this is a good movie. And I'll say this about this movie: the fact that it's so eerily accurate and close to what we're currently going through. Right down to even just some of the faces. Like, there's this doctor, and I can't think of his name, and it's kind of shameful I can't think of his name, because I've been seeing the dude on TV for the last however many weeks, but he's usually on CNN. And just for full disclosure, I watch all the channels, because everybody's got their take on stuff, so I try to get all the angles. So I flip channels. I watch all the channels, and I read articles and all the multiple sites. I don't marry myself to any one source, so to speak. So just to put that out there. But he's usually on with Anderson Cooper a lot. This one doctor dude. I don't know if his name is. I don't want to even mess up his name. It might be Sanjay Gupta or something. I don't want to mess up his name. But the last few weeks he's been on CNN a whole lot, really talking about what's going on. And in this movie Contagion, he's on there talking about, the outbreak that's going on in that movie. So it's just it was a very surreal thing watching Contagion in the midst of all this that's going on. I don't know how the movie would have came off if I had watched it for the first time in 2011. But the movie is highly impactful if you watch it for the first time right now in present times. My first comparison for this film is Outbreak. I saw that movie. This Outbreak came out in '95. Stars Dustin Hoffman, Cuba Gooding Jr., Kevin Spacey, Morgan Freeman, Rene Russo, lots of people. Just one of those classic movies, kind of like how Contagion is as well, kind of following the same formula of just having just a super high powered, large, talented cast. Outbreak was like that. But I remember when that came out, and I saw that pretty soon after its release. Within a few years of Outbreak being out, I got the chance to see it. So that's kind of my pandemic, outbreak type measuring stick. That's the movie that I compare pandemic films to, I suppose. Not that I've just seen a whole bunch of pandemic films, but that's kind of the comparison that I was holding Contagion to. And I will say, in my opinion, Contagion surpasses Outbreak in terms of just as a movie. I recently rewatched Outbreak. After watching Contagion a few days later, I watched Outbreak, and Outbreak felt kind of laughable in moments. And I also just wasn't a fan of Dustin Hoffman's character in Outbreak. Like, he was kind of like, I was annoyed that that was the protagonist, that his protagonist or his character was the one that I'm kind of supposed to be living the story through, and I'm supposed to be rooting for this guy, and he was kind of an annoying character in a lot of moments and spots and things like that. And which leads me back to Contagion. I liked Contagion because of its almost clinical-like nature of the film. The film stylistically felt a lot like, if you remember this TV show called House that stars this actor named Hugh Laurie. I don't think that show comes on anymore. But I know there was a period of time where I was in a situation where that show was getting watched a lot, and I liked it too. It was interesting in moments and things like that. But yeah, that show was very clinical. It's like the sounds, the score and the music for that show and everything. That there was a very kind of clinical, sterile type, hospital type nature to just the sound design of that TV show. And this movie Contagion kind of has that same type of vibe where it's very clinical and also not so Disney like Outbreak dealt with very serious subject matter, very serious life and death situation, and a realistic situation as well for the most part, considering what the threat was in Outbreak. But there was that kind of Disney-fied movie, traditional movie way of telling the story. There was a lot of kind of traditional symphony music type storytelling with that movie. I'm not really quite sure how to articulate it, but it was just very Disney-fied, just very kind of, it was still as kind of messy as the threat was in this movie. There was still something very almost family-like about the movie. Like, even though this Outbreak was an R-rated film, but watching it now, it feels very kind of Disney-fied. That's just the best way for me to put it. And I feel like that word Disney-fied actually makes sense. Like, I think people understand what I'm saying when I use that term. Whereas Contagion just felt clinical. Like, it just felt almost like a subtle horror movie in a way. Like Contagion, there was just something very real in comparison to Outbreak. There was something, just the way it was executed, there was something very, very real about that film, and it wasn't really trying to kind of gloss things up or make things kind of wrapped up in a bow at the end, even though you could argue things do somehow kind of get wrapped up a little bit, but there's still a very, and it might have to do with the fact that I watched it during the time period, present time that we're living now, but there's something very eerie about Contagion. It doesn't feel like a problem got solved in the same way that you would think that it would, considering what happens in the movie. But if you've seen the movie, I think you know what I'm talking about. So my score for Contagion, I'm sorry, I know I rambled a lot with this. It was kind of directionless because I went from Contagion to talking about Outbreak and back to Contagion. I understand, but I think if you know what words mean, you could kind of follow what I was saying. So my score is 9 out of 10 for Contagion. Yeah, my only negative for this movie, I forgot to mention this. My only negative for this movie is that it really reinforced, because this movie came out in 2011, right? It really reinforces the idea that we should have been a little bit better, or a lot more better prepared for some of the things that are going on right now. Like, when you watch this movie and then you're like, and then you think about everything that's going on right now, especially if you've been following, for the most part, a lot of the details and following the news tidbits as they come out and the stats and the science info as it comes out. It's kind of like, and you follow some of the backstory, like the history in terms of, you know, what has and hasn't happened, you know, in the last 10 years and what opportunities were there that weren't taken in the last few years. Just everything. When you start thinking about everything, it's like, damn, this movie just really pushes home the fact that we did kind of, you know, we did have an idea of what was possible and really what was coming, you know, for the most part. So it's just, that's the one negative about this movie. It's just the subject matter. It's a really well made movie about a very kind of dark subject matter that becomes even darker when you consider the fact that we're now actually really dealing with the subject matter of this film. It's like it's like watching. It's the closest you can get, you know. Well, so far, who knows what the future holds? But it's the closest you can get to watching a movie about a zombie outbreak while there's zombies knocking on your window, like as you're watching the movie about zombies. It's a weird kind of thing. But that's it, you guys. Thank you for watching. 9 out of 10 for Contagion. I do kind of recommend it, you know, kind of as long as you got the heart for it, because it's not like a feel-good movie necessarily, but it is a really well made and interesting film. All right, so thank you for watching. I will catch you on the next go round.